Now we are live. Hey everyone, today we have a very special guest speaker with us who is Arsala Bangash, the founder of Grey Software, which is actually a non-profit startup. And they are on mission to empower Pakistan with open source software and learning. Arsala undergraduate degree was from University of Toronto in computer science, where he just served as a teacher assistant and also helped their department with Hack Club initiate and other techies initiate. In industry, he worked as a software engineer at Google and Vida. So I'm really glad to see you, sir, here. So you can help us out how we can get started with open source and how J software is empowering Pakistan with open source softwares, which is actually really important here. None of people from Pakistan doesn't have idea that we have open source organization in Pakistan which are actually not for profit and helping the students get started with learning and so they can achieve with real hands-on based learning, which I actually when I actually was a part of your great software, I actually learned a
Great.
lot. I get started with open source about the Gitlab. Here is a T-shirt here. So
Very
after
hands-on.
contributing to your contributing to your organization, I become a Gitlab hero. So this is all thought out to you. So you can get
Thank
started.
you so much. I appreciate it, Adil. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Um, I'm happy to see Ritik and Abdurrahman. Wa alaikum salam. Nice to have everybody here. Um, my name is Arsala. Adil gave a short introduction about me, and today I hope to quickly go over some of the benefits to you guys as students from open source software. Many of you may have heard the term. Many of you may already have started messing around with GitHub and GitLab pull requests. I just hope to tell you a clear story of how open source can benefit you in a more applicable way. Because, like Adil said, I'm not here to sell you anything. We're a not for profit organization. We're only looking for the benefit of students because students are going to be entering the next generation of the industry. So, inshallah, I'm really looking forward to everybody. Sorry, there may be some people from around the world. Adil and I are both in Pakistan, so you may hear some colloquial language. But I'll get started soon by sharing my screen, and in the at the same time, maybe Adil, you can point everybody to the Gray Software website. Is there somewhere we
Also,
can put it in so people can initially start getting a look as I start narrating? Instead of looking at my screen, maybe people want to see it for themselves.
yeah, sure.
So is that in the private chat? If I just write https gray.software, maybe that would work. There it is. Adil, thank you so much. Okay, so I'll share my screen and I'm going to go through a short presentation. In that presentation, I hope each of you derives value for themselves. And of course, if you get questions, just like Debasish posted right now, please keep them coming because it'll also help um, drive the conversation in the right direction. Thank you for putting up that up on the screen. So we're going to go over all of that. Let me start by sharing my screen.
Yeah,
All right. Does everybody see what I see?
I can see. Just me that everyone can see you.
Wonderful. So I just put this up first because in the limited time that we have together, I can only tell you so much. But I do recommend that after this session, you take a look at this explore page and our socials. We're really ramping up with new resources and new guidance to help students out. And please do check out the website if you know somebody that wants to support. That would be wonderful. But the best way you can support is by going on your own learning journey and figuring out, okay, how can I best contribute to this new ecosystem that's developing. Everyone's doing their own part. And if you learn the skills, if you work with dedication, you can join the millions of people that are already on this wave, learning the latest tools. So, looking forward to all of it. But without further ado, let's talk about how you can benefit from the world of open source software as a student. So, we're going to go over a brief introduction of what open source software is. And what I like to call it is anything that people can learn from and modify because its source materials are publicly accessible. The best analogy I can give so that open source isn't only limited in your mind to software is that imagine if the products that you loved using all had open blueprints, schematics, specifications. How do you build this? How do we decide to build this? This is very valuable learning material for students because students, we want to work in the real applied world. We want to build things. We want to exercise our creativity. And for that, we need to learn from the best. The best isn't usually in the minds of our professors because our professors are limited. But when you get the global collective building something, you can learn from it, and it really takes your understanding of how things work to the next level. That's why students always covet internships. It teaches you those things. But, anyways, that's a slight digression. We know the value of open source and some examples that provide value in our daily lives are the Android operating system and the Linux kernel and operating system. These are two examples of open source software that are so ubiquitous. I'm running two Android devices right now, and most of the country's key infrastructure, whichever nation you're in, it's running on Linux servers, the web infrastructure, and all of these things were created collaboratively. And of course, not everything with open source, one of the greatest benefits you get is not everything has to be the same. There's different flavors of Android, there's different flavors of Linux. And because people shared, we got to have all these flavors. It wasn't just one person keeping their intellectual property to themselves and preventing human evolution. So those are two big examples. And I'll briefly, this isn't important to you specifically as a student, but I do want to give you a high level overview because it's exciting. I want you all to be excited by the prospect of what open source can do for the new world that we are going to be living in. So the first thing is trust through transparency. Nowadays, consumers are getting smarter. People want better, more ethical products. And we've seen many scandals over the past years with social media companies now being exposed like other corporations were exposed because they weren't being transparent with the public about what they were doing. So our trust was broken, our software is working against us, and that's not how the world should be. We should love the software that we use and the hardware that we use and the people that we're around. The other big benefit of open source is you get community support. The community support really opens your eyes to the fact that software is not just built by coders and developers. Even the people who have opinions about how the software should be, they're valuable parts of the user research process. Usually companies have to pay to get testing groups and say, how is our product? But with open source, if you get passionate people who care about your product, they'll give you the valuable opinions that can help you shape them. And there's open source design where designers can also contribute. This isn't only limited to the realm of systems level software engineers, as a lot of people think, or web developers, even though that was the start of the open source movement. Now it's becoming greater and more inclusive. People who write documentation are an important part of the community, and there's a lot of ways to get involved that are great. The last is education and democratization. We talked about the fact that there's a lot of benefit from open source and the fact that you get to read high quality code. When I was at Google, one of the main benefits was the fact that I was exposed to reading so much high quality code, and I had to write like them. So it really it gives you the right best practices that you should follow. With respect to democratization, that's more of a vision for a more connected world. Our world has already been connected by software because we're all on the same platforms, and it all runs on a infrastructure of key open source software. And that's amazing because what we want for a more fair what we want for the world is for it to be more fair. It shouldn't matter that Adil was born in Lahore and I got to immigrate to Canada um, when I graduated high school. We both have access to the same internet, the same open source tools, and that's great because it limits the barriers and it makes the world more just and fair. So now, why should you contribute? First of all, um, well, there's we're all trying to become. Now, I'm guessing most of you are in university, or maybe some of you are also in high school. Some of you are fresh graduates. We all want our place in the world. We all want to be competent, and we want to be of use to people, live good lives. And society told us that this is what you do. You go to school, you go to university, then you'll get a job, and it'll all be fine. And it was the case for the generation before us. But the demands of the modern uh, economy are such that academia can't really keep up. Our universities and our professors, they can't keep up with the latest knowledge every year. So that's part of the unfairness in terms of where you go to university. But um, why you should contribute is because you get the kind of education that I feel universities can't give. And there is a step above open source contributions. I think that's if you're working someplace in an internship as a student, that's probably the best education you can get. It's literally preparing you, giving you a demo of what life would be like as a full-time member of society. Um, but university is more of like a game. They give you assignments. There's a score attached to it, and the score carries on for the 4 years. You get a paper at the end, but that paper is a it's it's a mark of competence, but it doesn't tell the whole story. That's why now the demands have increased. People are asking for certifications. People are asking for internships. Are you a GitLab campus expert? The bar keeps getting higher and higher. But
Even a lot of interviewer ask about your GitLab or GitHub contributions. That if
yes,
you don't have a proper contribution, you might not be get hired. This is really, I think, something really need to be added.
yeah, and it's a lot of pressure on students. Like I think
Because I
Adil and
know
I got on the wave early.
a lot of
Yes,
students in universities, like the way of they study, like they just cramming the things and just paperwork, and they just have just some degrees. So there is no some kind of division between a talented student and a student who just cramming each and everything, like he just cram the code and doesn't have a strong concept when it's come to system designing, cloud computing. He just know the basics, but he doesn't know how to implement all of these. So software houses industry doesn't want such kind of students. They want such people who just have a great
because his
basics
their
and
professors,
implementation.
yeah,
Yeah, so there's actually a
mhm,
great addition when it's come
who
to
can
they
think
just
about
want how
problems,
much.
who can
Yeah,
design creative solutions, code.
yeah, yeah, you can continue.
Yes. So thank you for that addition, Adil. Like Adil has identified that the bar keeps getting higher and higher. So this was like part of the story that I was trying to wrap up. We all got told the same story: can go to university, get your degree, and you'll have all the skills you need. And then we go in there, we realize life is a little more complicated. It's not black and white. Our professors may not be up to date. So what we're learning is kind of working against us, giving us old patterns that then we have to unlearn in order to join the modern industry. It's a lot of pressure. But the reason we're here today is because I do think there's a way out. And I think that that way out is contributing to open source software because there's very little barriers to join. And a lot of it, the cost to entry, if you have an internet connection, if you have a laptop, then it's just the will. There's new dev tools being made every day. So even if you have a slow computer, you can still run things. But um, what really needs to exist is the will. And I hope the first two parts of this, where I gave you the background, get you excited about open source, and then I kind of gave you the story about how uh, we weren't told the whole story when we went to university. So from all that, where do we go from here? So the first thing I would recommend doing is, no matter who you are, you should definitely go and explore the onboarding exercise. The onboarding exercise was something that Adil and I wrote back in I think around this time 2021.
True,
And
that's true.
if you complete the exercise, you'll have the essential accounts that you need to contribute to open source. You'll learn Markdown, which is the most crucial language for open source. You'll get to do a fun little exercise. And at the end, if you complete the exercise successfully, you will be part of this page on our organization website. So all of these people have successfully completed the exercise. And this just means if you complete it, you have, I'll always have contact with you. And if you complete it, I know that you've shown a commitment to exploring this open source path, and we can stay in touch on Twitter or LinkedIn. I can see how I can help you out because a lot of the help does happen um, individually, like broad pieces of advice are good, but most likely, if you're stuck or if you need to overcome certain obstacle, it's unique to you. So, um, to that end, I want to give something very applicable for university students that I tried in FC College Lahore, but it's to try and understand your archetype. This is vital because usually if somebody comes and gives a talk at your university or someone's giving advice, the advice may not apply to you. They're giving very broad advice and people are different. So you need something that works for you. I notice this because sometimes the things that work for me don't work for everybody else. And even something that worked for me a year ago wouldn't work for me now if I'm in a different phase of life. So this one's a little more geared towards university students or people still in school. But if you're Out of school, you can still look at your personality type. There's some good research. Step beyond the world of computer science and actually also think about life. So if you are um, busy and challenged, which is this archetype right here, you're probably pulled in many directions and you feel stressed. Maybe computer science first year, or if you're in an engineering program, wherever you are, it's really rough on you right now. Um, you probably will benefit from something that is free and very valuable for your time. And you probably will also benefit from some counseling and mentorship. So, free and valuable for your time, I would say definitely do the onboarding exercise. It takes around, like, I've seen people complete it in 10 minutes, I've seen people complete it in an hour, whatever, however long you need. You should just be gentle with yourself. It's free, it's not going anywhere. And from there, if you want to have contact, you can contact me on LinkedIn. We can start a conversation. We can figure out what are you trying to do? What's the next step? The second archetype is independent and focused. If you're this archetype, you know that university, you're not very engaged in campus life. You know what you want. You're like, I'm okay on my laptop doing my work. I'm clear and focused. I don't need a study buddy. I'm pretty good on my own. So for you, I think something asynchronous like Gray Software is brilliant for you. You can check out our resources website and also our learning website, because over here we're constantly updating um, useful materials, useful learning materials, and otherwise um, tools and resources that could help you. And there's some serious learning content that we try to digest in a way that is understandable, because usually documentation speak, it's hard to comprehend. So we try to really simplify things for students. Um, and then if you're independent and focused, I definitely think you should start a project. Start a passion project, try to learn something new. There's even JavaScript, 30 projects in 30 days. You can do 30 projects in 100 days, or you can do however many projects it is. Just don't stay stagnant and try to keep learning, because um, if you're in this and you're trying to make it, if you're in this industry and you're trying to make it, you owe it to yourself to um, explore your potential and try to make it fun. Don't be miserable while you do it. And that takes us to like the happy and successful crowd. These are those people who do well in school, who do well in friends, who are involved in clubs. They're just doing everything. So for you, I would say still feel free. Like, um, if you are already a campus expert, or if you are already a successful freelancer in on the side and you're doing well in school, you should just be a role model and you should help people out. Tell people about Gray Software, or if you can benefit from it, definitely come join us and help spread the good vibes. And the last one, if you're social and active, if you're not really, like, some people, they care more about relationships than they do academics. And in the short term, that seems like they're doing bad in school and they're going to fail in life. But usually, not usually, it's always case dependent, but sometimes those people, they go on and they're very successful in life because they know how to talk to people. They know how to communicate. They know how to bring ideas together. So for these people, I would say if you are in a computer science or engineering program and you're seeing that, yeah, I'm not really vibing with intense mathematics, intense logic, I care more about people, um, you probably are, you could benefit from more of an entrepreneurial, business, leadership, design, management side. There's so many different things that go into delivering a successful piece of software these days. So you'll have those avenues, and I think um, even if the open source community may not have specific applicable work for you, there's still valuable things you can do in sharing resources, connecting with people, organizing events, um, getting involved in many other ways. There's like new roles called developer relations, developer advocacy. And it's an exciting time in tech. Like 20 years ago, the term product manager wasn't even invented. And now there's product manager, product owner. Wherever you are, I think there's a good fit for you somewhere. And so that's all I have in the like for the story of telling you why open source matters, why you should contribute, and how you can get started no matter where you lay on the personality spectrum or where your circumstances are. So I hope that was valuable in some way. Please do get in touch through the onboarding process and through LinkedIn. If you send me a LinkedIn connection request and I see that you've completed the onboarding, I'll never ignore it because it shows me that um, you're willing to do something. You're willing to put in the effort. And otherwise, I'm happy to take some questions right now.
I think we have only one question that everybody said to get involved in open source. You have to get
All right.
involved with open source, but nobody said how
Yes.
to get, like, he just want to say like how to get involved with open source.
Yes, and I think that's why, Adel, when you and I first were imagining the onboarding exercise, it was so we had an answer to every student who asked. We said, go to the onboarding exercise, all the accounts you need, a fun exercise, the fact that you actually get to commit to a real organization. Um, I would say there's official tutorials from GitHub, GitLab, everybody, but do give onboarding by Gray Software a try because it's very hands-on. Um, you won't feel like it's wasted, and I'm willing to follow up and help you out.
I think a lot of people just really confuse themselves that we can only contribute to code, but I think that's not actually accurate. We can also contribute to documentation. Like if somebody have some grammatical errors or some template issues with documentation, you can also contribute to it. And you can also contribute to UI UX design. You can also contribute to code, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff which can be covered while it's come to contribution to open source. Anything else you would like to add?
I would like to add when you say contributing to documentation, sometimes you need to understand the code in order to document the code. But documentation isn't only explaining the classes and creating a design doc. Some of the most helpful documentation is tutorials. So if you have the writing skill, if you've been able to teach people in your class, if you can break down step one, step two, step three, that really goes a long way. So that's a very helpful contribution someone can do.
Yeah. So now we just have got the idea like how contribution work, and
Yeah.
while student can also get the YouTube videos that how to create their first pull request on GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. And it's depend on the what kind of version controlling they would like. Right? We usually prefer GitLab or GitHub, and it's depend. So how Grey Software is empowering Pakistan, and what would you like to see Grey Software in upcoming 5 years when it's come to open source?
So um, the first thing is Gray Software is for anyone remotely around the world, but I happen to be in Pakistan right now. I was in Canada when I formally founded it, but I've been here for the past 2 years. I've had some university visits that have been pretty fruitful, and I guess that's a way I get to empower Pakistan. But I've also worked with people in India, people in Canada, people in UAE, a short collaboration with someone in Mexico. So the beauty of open source is really that because we work asynchronously, because we communicate, people from all over the world can benefit from it. And that really is the vision that I'd like to see. I'd like to see that students from around the world have a name in their head when they think of what's a trusted source that's not going to sell me something. Some things are valuable to buy, but sometimes if you're too aggressively selling, students are already, they've been paying too much for tuitions and they're not getting the value they need. So I would like to see a network of people around the world who are lifelong learners, who care about this, who are sharing things with me. I'm sharing things with them. Um, we're figuring out how to build new software. And I also hope that we turn into a serious competitor in the software product space because we do create products so that students can learn. Right now, we have a product called Focused Browsing that people can check out as well. So I hope, hopefully, there's like 10 to 15 apps that we are producing, maintaining, updating, and then students from all over the world can learn what's going on. They can see um, that, wow, I use these apps on a daily basis, and this is how they're built. And this company is also teaching me how to build the next generation of apps. So it's just spreading that love of knowledge.
Really love the idea about the Grey Software and its mission to empower Pakistan, especially power Pakistan. It's all around the globe. The mission you are actually more focused on. But let's talk about Pakistan and Pakistan people. They really need open source and people like you who
Mm.
are working from Pakistan, working for Pakistan, and working
Yeah.
for Pakistani people.
Yes.
So that's really a great. Uh,
If I can say a
so
couple
how
words
great?
about, now, if I can just
Yes,
say
you can say
something that's more
yes,
culturally relevant to Pakistan and India,
yes.
like in South Asian culture, education is very important to us because we know it's our golden ticket to better lives. And I think our parents, our societies, they really encourage positive education habits in us. But unfortunately, the systems got old. So I've heard a lot of students from Pakistan and India complain a lot, and they have a right to complain. I used to complain a lot when I was here as well. But now I see people like Adil. He's been here and he's been killing it. GitLab, campus hero, GitHub campus expert. I don't know. He's got like every certification that LinkedIn can give, but it shows that um, if you're constantly worried about the circumstances, and Pakistan doesn't, or India, we don't have the best circumstances. Life abroad in many ways is better. That's why people try to get out. But now our lives are changing with we have pretty much the same digital services as outside. Our 4G is much cheaper, so that, like, you should be very thankful that 4G is cheap here. The internet access is good, and if that is good, you can learn. Your parents
I
want
think,
you to learn, your society wants you to learn, and the best
I,
education library and resources is available to everybody. So it's the most democratized situation in education that we've ever had.
so I would like to add here that we always complaining about Pakistan, about the Asian countries that we don't have resources to get started. We don't have this. We don't have like we are very behind the Western and Europe countries. But I think that's not true. You all only need if you just have internet and if you know about open source, you can easily get started. Like I just already working with Indians and a lot of people around the globe when it's come to open source. So I think it's just like people just who don't want to contribute, who don't want to work, who don't want to have hard working. They always just have complaints about their country, complain about their internet connection and a lot of stuff. Like people like me who just get started with zero. I was actually even doesn't have a like 4 GB RAM laptop when I just get started with open source contribution, and you just have idea about this.
Yes.
and I have actually a very slow internet connection. But I was actually passionate that I
Mm,
want to do something. So I think the only thing you just need to passionate. If we
mm,
just compare ourselves to other people, that Western people are so much where they just have a lot of new gadgets. Doesn't matter. The
mm,
only thing which matter for us is passion. If you follow your passion, you can get anything. Now I just have a lot of
mm,
like new gadgets because I actually spend a lot of my time to open source contributions to learning, which now I'm just getting returns. So this is the benefit of open source, which really helped me out.
mm, mm. Yes. And I can say, as somebody who saw Adil's evolution, last year Adil did not have this fancy chair and the fancy mic. And I mean, it's just a blessing to see that if someone works out of passion, they can change their circumstances, they can get rewarded
That's
for it.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so my
All
last
that's
question, so we can
all
just
that's
warm
great.
up the session. So how GitLab is empower gray software that so anything would like to add why we prefer GitLab. So might be this is a technical question, but I would just like to add why you prefer GitLab
Well,
instead of other like GitHub and Bitbucket.
I go over this in our documentation. I'm not opposed to anybody using GitLab or GitHub. Personally, when you try to manage 10 or more repos, then GitHub becomes, you have to click too much. There's too many page changes. Many people then use a third party service like Linear or GitKraken, and that makes it easier than GitHub. For GitLab, I was very happy. When I moved, I said, wow, I can finally, like, if I'm working on 12 projects, I can see things more clearly. So that's a personal preference. But
Yeah.
the main thing is, I just like everybody to um, derive some sort of passionate story within them, because like Adil had something in him that was driving that passion, and that's his own story. You don't have to tell your story to the whole world and say, this is why I'm doing this. If it's internal and is strong, your intention and then your hard work will just carry the rest of it. And there's great resources for you to learn from. So definitely don't complain. Things are very good right now. Like, things are better than when I was a first year student. So if you're a first year student, you should be happy. It's things are much better. Even though competition gets higher, opportunity also expands.
So thanks, Ursula, for your time, and I hope you
Thank
just
you so
love
much.
my gift, which I just sent you. It's actually a
Thank you.
GitHub. It's just from GitHub, a little token from GitHub side. So I hope you would love the gift. So
I really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much for your time.
Yes, I
And
hope
if anyone have
everybody
any
got
question,
something valuable.
yeah, you can drop your LinkedIn profile so I can just
Yes,
share with my people. So if they have any question related to like open source, what but mostly ask about gray software. This session is all about gray software and how they gray software is empowering student in Pakistan, which usually people doesn't have any idea. Like people are just complaining that we don't have open source organizations in Pakistan, but unfortunately there are a lot of we have open source, and my favorite one is gray software, and because I just contribute to to this one, that's why. So I contribute a little bit to onboarding process. I hope this will be something uh, a great one. So thank you so much for your time. So we
thank
can
you.
just end the session.
I really appreciate it. Peace out, everybody.